Hello there everyone, welcome back to Fatman Paints. It's been a couple of days. Sorry I missed yesterday's stream. Sorry for being a little late today. Not been feeling so great recently, so yeah, a bit tired. So maybe another short one this evening as I just wrap up a few bits and pieces and get ready for some work in the garage. Anyway, it's a little past 10:30. A little bit to do. It's time for a little refreshment. I am not endorsing any brand of cheap cooking lager at all, but it's cold and it's going to do the job for a little bit. Let's just get this poured and off to the side, and let's get to it. There we go. Right. Not planning on doing too much today, but we'll see how we do. Anyway, so we finished the base of the Mawloc a couple of days ago. Still needs to go for a varnish. Get this fella tabletop ready, getting varnished so that mucky fingers and chips and knocks are not going to affect him too much. So I'm going to put him off to the side for the time being until we get him done. Next thing we're going to do today is I'm going to get these ready for priming. So when I'm going to prime these fellas, they'll be primed. We'll put the Mawloc for a varnish. We'll do it all at the same time, and we'll get all that done. So when it comes to priming for my Tyranids, I use Tamiya Fine Surface Primer, white. It's in a rattle can because of the way that I do the flesh on the Tyranids, as you know. This is the this works really well for me. It's also an awesome primer. Adheres really well. Paint adheres onto it. A little bit of a gap fill for stuff. Fantastic stuff. For the varnish for the Mawloc, when I come to it, I'll be using Tamiya Clear TS80. Again, I found this to be a really good varnish. Really matte. It really settles everything in. It really locks everything down as well, and it does provide that kind of level of protection for touching the model that you want. Certainly when it's like a tabletop game and you're going to be touching the thing, you're going to be playing with it, you're going to be knocking it over and packing it away and shipping it around and stuff. So I find it's always good to lock something in. So these two Tamiya rattle cans do the job for me, and they work quite well. But before we get to the priming, we're going to finish off basing these fellas. So we've got our Streamer Killer, and we've got our Neurotyrant and the Neurotyrant node markers, whatever they are, from the Leviathan box set. So we're going to finish off the basing for these things, set them aside for our priming, and then if I've got some time I'll move on to do a little bit more on our Genestealers over here. And we started the carapaces on those fellas, so it's about time to do a little bit more on those and see where we go with those things. See how far we get this evening. See how energetic I am for that. Right, for these big fellas, I did some initial work on the bases a couple of days ago. I stuck some big stones on, some skulls, some details such as this. They then went and had a good wash in some warm, very mildly warm soapy water. So I swished them all around and gave them a good rinse in cool water after, and then let them dry off after a bit of a pat dry. So these hopefully now are grease free. I've washed my hands, I've given them a good clean, so hopefully now when I put the bases onto the handling bases, I won't touch these again while I'm going through the painting until they get their clear coat on and the seal in. So, you know, as we say, fingers just get greasy naturally. Skin greases. Grease on models stops paint adhering. It just doesn't work. So I always start with a washed hand, keep it clean, and try and only touch the bases. So I've got some little bits of wood offcuts here, and a remains of an old picture frame, which I'm going to use as the bases to put the models on. I'm just going to use a little bit of blue tack, which will do for sticking the things on. Not a lot to do there. So the first thing is there. Let's just take them, hold them on a little base, and just give them a bit of a squeeze. Put them on. You can see that'll hold them on quite nicely as we'll go through the rest of the painting process. Even for the larger models, we're all good from there. And actually, once I've primed, I'm going to change that base down to a smaller one we've got on the Mawloc, but just for handling while we go through the priming process, I'm going to leave that on there. Right. We are now in a position to do the next bit of basing activity before we prime. So what I'll do on my priming activity for this one. Well, hey Bunker. Well, fellas, welcome back to another night. I'm going to see what we can get through tonight. It's late. I'm prepared. Feeling a bit tired there. So I'm going to see how far we go tonight. Anyway, it's good to see you all again. I hope you're all well. I hope you've had a good Thursday. I hope your Friday isn't going to be too tedious. And I hope you're all good and well. Right, I'm going to finish off basing these fellas tonight. For my basing, I do a technical paint, a grill and Armageddon dust. It's kind of like a really gritty, dark, almost like wall filler that we put on, but it sticks really well. And then into those areas I'm going to drop some fine modelling sand and various grades of railroad talus, which act as little stones. They'll settle into the that grill and dust, and they'll just give a little more texture onto that. I'm going to apply the stuff with the Citadel texture tool, because I happen to have one, but there's, anything else will do apart from a brush, because it'll really screw up your brush. So anyway, we're going to go. I'm going to start with the little fellas and work up on size. Go from there. Right, I'm going to put a little of these bits off to the side so I can grab them as needed. Looks like decorating a cake. I'm putting them well off to the side so I don't knock them over, because I have a tendency to be really clumsy, and I may have knocked over a paint or two in my time. I saw you doing a bit of work the other day on the chariot bunker. I jumped in the stream for a while. I think I saw you doing some work on the cloaks. If I remember, there was a really nice blue you were building up on them. How are they going? Oh, paint pots, right. Jesus Christ. So when I do the basing of the models, what I want to do ultimately at the end of it is have none of that kind of black original Citadel base visible. I either want to have a rock, a skull, this kind of mix of the technical paint and small stones, the cracked earth paint, or grass tuft, because the bare base just it's a bit boring. Layers upon layers, eh, Bunker? That's where it all goes with the painting, isn't it? Layers upon layers, little bits here and there, always more. That's all we need for that for the moment. Just like salt and pepper, let's put a little bit here and there. Gravity will let it stick in. Tap, let it all come off. There we go, one done. And as always, rinse and repeat, because it's always more of the same, isn't it?
Is that bin empty? Last one bin. Yeah. Cool. I won't go back upstairs and go and do it then.
Kids did it.
Pardon?
The kids did it.
Oh, cool.
So that's some domestic conversation. So what have you got left to do on your chariot? I think I saw some of the initial work on the horses looked to be done as well when I was having a look on the stream. Nice. I'll try and catch your stream next time and see how you're going on that one, because they were looking really good. Right, number 2 done. I also find using this technical paint as well helps you to blend in the bases, the decorative bases that Games Workshop put on a lot of the figures these days. So it helps you build up a more smooth layer, or a more incremental layer from the base when you do these. So I tend to be a bit more liberal with the application around these things, certainly on these little bits here, and get them all a little more sort of flush with the base that's in there. There we go. can't make my mind up whether I like the kind of base details that sort of Games Workshop seem to be doing a lot of with models now. So there's a lot of sort of base details that come along because they don't necessarily fit in with the aesthetic of your kind of your basing you've done for all the other models. You know, if you're doing a jungle or a water base, sort of a big metal pipe coming out of it doesn't really necessarily fit in with that. I guess you can always cut it off and do your own basing, but anyway, that's old man me moaning for pointless things to moan at. Anyway, this is the model we have, so let's work with it as well. So like I said, I'm using the technical paint here to kind of blend in the edges of this base a little more, and a little more smooth with the actual main base itself. I've got a little more experiments to do with a bit of concrete and a bit of rock to sort of figure out how I'm going to paint these things. So these little tiles back here that I've been working on, small 25mm bases that I had lying around. I've got bits of granite on, got bits of concrete that I've made from some old bits of sprue and stuff, so I need to finish off those tests at some point, but you know, I've got hundreds of Tyranids ahead of me first, so those have been taking a little bit of precedent. Yeah, everything these days, it's tactical rocks, tactical concrete. Yeah, I can understand it. It helps to make more of a dynamic figure because they can position it better with a bit more of a, an interesting base. It allows them to get the model in a different pose because you don't need the kind of 2 feet flat, or at least one point with a really strong first foot down there. But at the same time, yeah, it makes life a little more difficult about how you're going to paint these things and how you're going to do it. You've got to kind of have a bit of a think a little more about how you're going to blend in those pre-basing details into your scheme that you have. But hey, Games Workshop know best. They're the ones making the big bucks. Not I, that's for sure. Anyway, right, we've got a bit of a mix of the Armageddon dust on there, so let's sprinkle with our forbidden seasoning. Got this. I need to give this mat a bit of a shake outside tomorrow, I think. There we go. That's well done. Let's move on to the big fella now. Well, let's just give a bit of a clean with that brush there. Might not be able to see that too much, but yeah, I've got stones all over my cutting mat now. I need to be careful with that. Right, as I said, I'm going to change that board tomorrow, but I'm just using it for the time being for today, just to be able to get this done without having to touch the model at all. first thing I'm going to do is blend in my 3D printed Tyranid spike, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's an official word for it, but I don't know what it is. So if this isn't fully done when it all cures, I will add a little more in just to again ease that joint between the two pieces, so it's not quite as obvious it's just stuck on. I mean, quite liberal with technical paint when I put that on. Again, I will be adding put some more small stones into that just to texture it a little further. Hey Hobby Corner, welcome aboard. I think if you watch me more than once, you'll find out that I tend to be on later rather than earlier, and I tend to paint Tyranids, and I tend to have a beer. So welcome aboard. I hope you can join in. What do you paint? Are you 40k? You Age of Sigma? You just anything different? Oh, hello again, Mr. Teabag. How are you doing? Thank you very much, Hobby. Bit of this and that. Mix it up. Always a good plan. My background is scale models, so tanks and sort of aircraft kind of things. But my lad decided he wanted to play 40k. Doesn't mind the building. Doesn't really like the painting. So I kind of inherited the mantle for getting these things up, done and dusted. But I don't mind. I really quite enjoyed it. So what are you working on at the moment, Hobby? Anything particular project you're up to? Excellent. You've got your airbrush then, Teabagger. It's are you just getting used to it? Are you trying out some particular sets of paints? I've seen lots of videos of people spraying plastic spoons with metallics just to get that right kind of finish on them. So what are you up to? Right, so nearly done with the this technical paint, I think. Armageddon dust. And I'll just drop on a bit more of the details onto it in a moment. And then this will dry overnight and be ready for priming tomorrow. So I'm going to prime this when I finish off varnishing that Mawloc. I'll clean that in a minute. Close the paint before I knock it over to the side. That's all cleaned up. Let's go and do our little salt and pepper. Just randomly drop some stuff on and let gravity work to suck it into the texture paint and let it stick on. Oh, you're in the middle, I need to throw at you. One. Got quite a lot of you in there. Well, good luck with the airbrush practice. When I first did my airbrushing, what I was scared of is the cleaning, because you read a lot of things about taking it all apart and making sure it's clean, and that almost petrified me. So it took me ages to kind of almost bring up my own courage to get to the airbrush and use it, because I knew I had to clean it after, and it was always a bit of a, am I going to break it? Am I going to mess it up? Am I going to do everything wrong? But in the end, it wasn't that bad. It was pretty straightforward stuff. You know, you just take your time with a lot of these things. Don't try and overdo it. So my airbrush, where is it? Hold on. I need to spring for the trigger mechanism on mine has gone, so I need to reset that, but not for today. That's another time. I don't need to do any airbrushing just yet, but I will be. So this has been a good fellow. It's an Iwata. It was a lovely airbrush, but I haven't used it in quite a while. Well, I haven't used it in quite a while for its intended purpose. I've used it as a compressed air cleaner for my PC. Never mind. But at some point soon I will need to get it back. I've got some larger models, not Warhammer stuff, but larger scale models that kind of need a bit of a airbrush on it to get those coats down. Right. Well, good luck when you do decide to paint. And I'm sure it will be. I'm sure they'll come out really, really well, given your heritage and how you approach your models. And from what you've said before, being an artist already, I think you know your colours, you know your techniques. I think you'll be awesome with it. I'm looking over at my keyboard and oh my god, does it need a clean. I don't think we'll go into too many details about how many mushrooms are growing up from it. It definitely isn't the best at the moment. I don't have a Discord, but I tell you what, let me look into it tomorrow, because it's come up a couple of times now. So let me have a look into that tomorrow, and I'll figure it out, because I'm still only pretty new to this whole malarkey. I don't quite know what's going on with Twitch. It's only been a couple of weeks. So give me a couple of days, I'll get that sorted, I'll get that up and running, we can all chat away. Right, this fella's based. We've got detail on there, we've got technical paints, we've got some stones, big, little, dusty bit of sand, skulls and all sorts. So these guys are going to go off to the side for the moment. I'll let all this stuff cure overnight. Then I will get it primed up tomorrow. The weather's looking good, it's not too wet, it's not too warm, it's not too cold. Goldilocks weather for spray can stuff. So I'll get these primed. We'll get the Mawloc varnished. So we've got all our base done on this. Get him varnished, and then he's practically done. Gloss varnish on the mouth, and finished. So it'll be done tomorrow. Right. I'm going to be finding bits of sand and stone on the floor for weeks. Let's get those off to the side. Awesome, looking forward to seeing those figures making teabagger. They'll be pretty good. Nice. Well, if you want to talk about purple and pink, small parts and spiky bits, or spiky bits and small parts, I don't think he's on, but he loves his pink and he loves his purples. Right. How are we doing? It is just after 11. I've got a little bit of time, so I'm going to do a little bit of work on the Genestealers we've got here. Same as I normally do with the carapace. They've already had their first couple of coats on, so they've got this kind of deep dark leathery kind of red. A couple of thin little brush strokes of corn red that I'm going to put just feather out from the sides, so not a lot on that. And then I'm probably, because they're small and there's not a lot of detail, just a quick dry brush of wild rider red across there, just to catch the edges and the highlights of these. So not too much detail for these, because they're small. My normal process for this is thin streaks of this, thin streaks of Evil Sun's Scarlet, thin streaks of another red, and then finally do the dry brush. But because they're small, and specifically for these, because of the way there's very little carapace, there's not a lot of layering for this, I'm going to get away with just these two on it. Now let's see if I can zoom in with my shitty webcam to get things a bit more focused. Hold on a moment, I'll see. Right. There we go. Layers and layers and layers. I think in miniatures, thin layers, building up from possibly an unsurprising base coat and just taking it up is the real way to go. Thin layers, washes, glazes. For my case, the way I do it, dry brushes, but also very thin layers of paint. It really gives a real richness into the figure, rather than just sort of a flat colour. You've got that real build up of scale, of smooth transitions between all those colours that they come through. So yeah, certainly you know, it's the way to go. Because I'm not a very good painter, I kind of replicate that by multiple layers of dry brushing, because it kind of almost does the same thing, and it's a bit quicker. And given my sausage fingers, my propensity for alcohol, and my advanced age and eyesight, it works really well for me. Anyway, I'll be back in a moment. I'm out of my Thursday night beer, so time for a top up. I'll be back in for about 60 seconds. Oh, I'm back. Hey Dave, yes, they are the old Genestealers. So these are what, 98,000 sculpts. So yeah, they are the old ones. And well, bugger me, I left my beer in the freezer too long, so I might have to get another one. It's a bit solid. They are old nids, and I've got 40 of these little fuckers. And I do need, certainly with 10th, I can only field 30 at one time. So 10 will not be painted for quite a while. And even though the new sculpts are out and they're pretty awesome, I got no need to buy them. I was born in Stockport, mate, in 1969. Hey, good night, Bunker. Glad you could join me for a few minutes. Good luck with the chariot. I'll catch your stream tomorrow or Saturday and see how you're doing on it. Yes, Dave, I was born in Stockport. I lived not too far away from the airport. I was, I think, a little bit south of it in the end by the time we left. And 30 odd years of living down south has not quite taken that little bit of me out of my accent. Oh, spinning Jenny. I'm not going to Google that. It rings a bell. Oh, my befuddled old brain isn't helping here. Go on, put me out of my misery. So I'm going to ask my wife, she knows things. Where was the spin Jenny invented? Spin Jenny. Yep, the wife didn't know either. Oh, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Right. I'm not going to Google. I'll keep my hands on my paintbrush and I'll start having a guess. Right, so is it Liverpool? Just trying to think about. No, it can't be. Liverpool's more off to the west. Preston. Preston North End. There. Well, I didn't know that. So, there we go. We've had a bit of a geography history lesson this evening. Cheers, Dave. I'm sure my wife's going to appreciate being put out of her misery. Are you still there? Is that where you grew up, or are you? Is that just where you're living now? So I was like I said, I grew up in Stockport, but I ended up coming down south. I now live just outside Reading. So I did my university in Sheffield, the other side of the Pennines, for my sins. And I came towards Reading for work because there was a lot more options for what I wanted to do here than there was up north, unfortunately. With my shitty camera you probably can't tell what I'm doing, but I'm just doing a little few thin brush strokes off to the edge here. I'll give a dry brush over it, I think, just set it all off later. Sorry, Teabag, I missed your comment up before. Yeah, the base layer and then building up through dry brushing is kind of the way that I go as well. That's I think as you've watched me a few times, it's my lazy style, but I find it quite effective. Hi Pickle, how are you? I trust all is well. I hope you're having a good Thursday. We're certainly here in the UK, we're not far off from Friday. I hope you're keeping your paintbrushes wet. So when I first put this paint on, it kind of looks quite bright. When it dries, it actually dries quite dark because it's quite thin, because it's an air, so it just helps the transition between these layers that I'm putting on here. Well, cheers Pickle. I have pretty much a full one here. My bed is upstairs. However, I have a day off work tomorrow, so I may be a little later getting to that bed this evening. We'll see how I feel. I felt a bit off for a few days, so not being busy in the paint room for a bit, but we're getting there tonight. We'll get a bit of progress. Feel like I've got a little bit of energy this evening. And we got company, so that's always good. Oh, where are we going? Well, I do have tomorrow off work because it's practically my birthday, and I will be a rather grand 54 years old, and I feel that's a lot older than I expected ever to be. Well, I hope, even if it's a slow couple of days, I hope you get some success over the next few days. I mean, if it's housing, does that mean you need to work the weekend as well on that stuff? No, this is looking a bit like some sort of deja vu, that I'm doing the same bloody things again and again. That's the problem with the Horde army. So many of the little fuckers. You just need to keep going. I was kind of looking through the backlog the other day, and I took some photos to try and get some good images, and I thought I'd finished far more than I had when I was taking them, but I was kind of concentrating on taking photos of the big fellas, and yeah, most of them, well, I may have painted a good chunk of those sort of big single figures, none of the kind of the horde type things. so many of the little things left to go. You know, even out without these, there's 20 more Genestealers, 10 more Gargoyles, 60 Termagants. Sooner or later I'm going to have to have painted them all, so I'll keep going for it. Yeah, I have to admit, I for the rental market, my daughter's off studying down in Brighton, and she struggled to find even student accommodation at the end of last year for this term. So, you know, I luckily I don't need to rent, but so everyone I've spoken to who I know who does, such a really rubbish market. I don't think the government's. The government thought they were probably helping by changing all the regulations to make it harder for like no fault evictions and stuff to be better for renters. I think it's always had a bit of a kind of backlash sentimental thing that a lot of people who rent out houses have all pulled out of the market because they don't want to be tied to those things. So yeah, it's a bit rubbish at the moment. I don't envy you, I have to admit. But at least for tonight, you've got your pint, you've got your bed. So at least there's some positives going for us there. I know exactly where you're coming from, Dave. I am really quite fortunate. I live in a medium-sized village south of Reading. It's we've got kind of like a post office. We don't have a bank. We have a couple of shops, quite a few houses. And it's lovely. There's no cars whizzing past all the time, no buses, it's quiet at night. I can go in my garden and you don't hear anything, just hear the birds and stuff, and really, really quite pleasant really. I wouldn't be anywhere else at the moment. But I'm sort of living in Sheffield. I did my degree living in Reading. When I sort of first came down here, it was all busy, it was all noisy, it was all very hectic and full on. And you know, as I get older, I don't want that anymore. Quiet life. And Teabagger's over there in Tennessee, relaxing, building dragons. Wow, quite a bit of cities you managed to get in there, Dave. I can't imagine. London's an interesting place. I've worked in London a lot, and I've done the Reading London commute, which is like an hour and a half each way. You know, that's 3 hours a day. That's 15 hours a week. It's 100 working days in a year you spend commuting from Reading into London, and it nearly killed me. But London, you know, it's the most exciting city in the world, but I've also found it's the most lonely city. If you don't know anything, there's so much to do, but no one to do it with. It's a very, very odd place. Pickle, aye, yeah. I've got some stuff lined up for priming tomorrow. I've talked about that already. The weather's looking good. We'll be on to it. Oh wow. Almost sounds like a almost sounds like some UK TV docu-series there, Dave. Right, I wasn't going to do these little bits, but I've decided I'm going to pop some little bits of paint around just the absolute edges before I do the dry brush on this one. I'm using a, that's a bit too small. Can't find my next small bit. Where's it gone? Oh. Oh, there you are. Wow. For me, what hobby shops have I got now? There's Games Workshop in Newbury, there's Games Workshop in Reading, there's the Newbury Model Shop, which is not particularly recommended. I think my studies, where I do my paintings, almost as big as that shop, and the guy's a bit of an arse. I think there's some of the shops in Reading, but they're not pretty obvious from what I know. So yeah, I think you're pretty lucky there. It's, unfortunately, I'd much rather buy things from shops when I sort of in person with people. But there's a cost factor. It seems to be so much cheaper to buy online, unfortunately. And I think that's one of the challenge now. No, teabagger, no. But I think you know that one. It does seem to be a bit of a cliche, certainly. With some people, is non-oil is the silver bullet for painting miniatures. Like everything, it has its place. It is a very useful wash. But it isn't the be all and end all of painting. Right. No, sweet pea.
No, no.
See another bit. Yeah, I think you're right with Nottingham. I've never been to Games Workshop World or Warhammer World. I keep thinking about taking my lad there because he's really interested in it. But it's a bit of a trek for me. A welding teacher. It's never had that when I was at school. We had a woodwork teacher who smoked a pipe, and he would always shake out the match to put it out when he lit his pipe, and throw it in the waste wood pile, which always went to kind of a pulping process. And that was great until he didn't shake it out properly and he set fire to the whole woodwork department. I think at that point he was banned from smoking his pipe in school ever again. Mr. Ricketts. He was Mr. Ricketts. And he was probably past retirement when I was at school. He had a great big bushy moustache. And the edges were stained with tobacco smoke. That kind of yellow stain you can get across things. He was a cantankerous old sod. And he ruled his wood shop like an absolute tyrant. This would be early 80s. Oh, of course, T-Bag, yeah, you say you had an interesting post-army career there. I bet if you know welding, do you get lots of requests from friends to patch up cars and things? T-Bag, have all your figures turned up now? Because I know you'd ordered a lot. Have you got everything you ordered now? It's quite a trek for the shopping then, from over to Romania all the way over to Tennessee. It certainly sounds like you've got enough to keep going with so far though. Your dragons and your figures. Yeah, regarding the Games Workshop move, I seem to remember there was a rather vicious editorial around the move in the games, in the White Dwarf magazine. I'm sure I saw a copy of it online one time that he basically just ditched the whole Games Workshop staff. Sorry, the whole White Dwarf staff as they were moving to Nottingham, and we weren't going to relocate anyone. Like a lot of constructive dismissal to me. Good luck on your teabag. Yeah, I'd like to run out of Tyranids to paint. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be painting them till I die at this rate. only another 170 to go, but these Genestealers are going to be relatively quick to rattle through, so it'll take a bit of a number off the headline. Oh, I suspect I'm going to be kind of concentrating on the big boys for a while, because those are the ones that, if I'm being honest, are much more fun to paint than these little fellas again and again and again. They're not like some of the other factions where, you know, everything's a little bit different. These are exactly the same. Oh, that's right, Pickle, I remember now, yeah. Oh shit, Dave. I had no idea about that. That sucks. Yeah. I was going to say, if anyone didn't know what a acrostick was, it's the first letter of each line. If you add them all together and put it down, it spells out something. So you get a lot of rickrolls done that way. But yeah, I remember seeing that one. But I think it was only pointed out to me many, many years later. Right, only two more of these fellas to go, and then I've done this, and then I'll do a quick dry brush across them. good. My frozen beer has mostly defrosted now. Still a bit slushy at the bottom. There you go. Anyway, cheers again. My happy holiday tomorrow's all good. Yeah, very sad there, Dave. I generally don't know too much about all the people involved in things like Games Workshop and stuff like. Certainly when I first started, I all got in the hobby with Dungeons and Dragons. So I remember the names like Gary Gygax and such like. And I don't think they've necessarily had a great time of it either. You know, TSR got bought out. Yeah, the game kind of. It was always a bit of a niche game, but it kind of lost out and stock computers all yeah. I do say that Dungeons and Dragons is making quite a kind of comeback at the moment. I know my lad has an online session every Tuesday we go through, and I've got another mate from my gaming time, my FPS gaming stuff. He has a regular D&D session as well, so I wouldn't know how much of that was it Stranger Times kind of reintroduced a generation into Dungeons and Dragons. I think it was E.T. that sealed my fate when the lads were playing it. Before I found E.T. himself. As we pointed out, I am an old fuck, so hey. Right, this is the last one. Taking the water out of that nib. Right, this is the last one of the Genestealers. The red on here. Slight feathering. And after I do this fellow. Awesome pickle. I'll drink to your beer run. Cheers, mate. So yeah, I always went to the original Games Workshop stores. So I went to the one in Manchester Arndale Centre when there was such a thing. So this be early 80s. I remember buying the little pewter figures, 40p each, just the standard stuff. I'd take them home and do an absolutely shitty paint job on them, and then we'd be playing D&D with them. With got so many mates, so many different people played. A wonderful time with it. Then I grew up, found computers, my Commodore 64, and I found booze and girls. I completely forgot about the whole thing for many, many years. Well, there we go. That's the last of those fellas done. Try and Games Workshop pots are absolutely shite, aren't they? Anyway, it's closed off to the side. And my tweezers, I do need a new pair of these because these are a bit of utility tweezers. These get used for more things than just they should be. Paint, super glue, yeah, probably spoiling the little fuckers. Right, let's put that off to the side for the moment. Right, so we have 10 of these fellas now. 1, 2, 3. And these are all going to get a bit of a dry brush now across the carapace just to finish these off. I said that the little, they don't need much more detail than that. So, let's confirm the progress. Right, 2 things. First of all, we'll deal with the tech first. I had a ZX81 to start with. I had a 16K RAM pack. You know, you breathe on it, it leans over, you lose everything. But also, my old man didn't understand computers at all. He was very much of a kind of an engineer, worked with hands, but he did whatever he could to help with this. So I ordered an online mechanical keyboard to kind of plug into the back of the ZX81, and he ended up having to kind of pull apart the ZX81, solder on these bits and pieces, and it worked great. He really supported me. So, but at the end of the day, the ZX81 we had proper keyboard, we had the RAM all fixed in, we had tons of stuff for it. It was awesome stuff. Totally skipped the Spectrum, went to a Commodore 64. It was not the computer I wanted. I wanted a Dragon 32 because a mate of mine had one and he had tons of games that I could copy. But in reflection, the Commodore 64 was a much better machine. There was a lot more games released from it in the end. I learned to program in machine code, proper assembly language in a compiler. I learned so much from that little machine. It was absolutely awesome. And it set me on to my career in IT. For better or for worse, that's where we went for. So yeah, that's my little IT history. But in terms of painting, I do the carapaces first for these fellas because I'm rubbish at painting. And what I mean by this is I'll get a lot of overpaint for doing the carapace. Now, for me, for Tyranids, the carapace is the centre of the model. It's the thing that people see in the figures themselves. So I want to kind of do the best job I can for that. So I do this first, and if there's overpaint, I can just use a bit of white, I have handily here, and paint off the other bits. And each sort of layer I go down, so I'll do the carapace, I'll do the arms and the body, I'll do the claws and then the face, and then it's kind of done. But the kind of the approach I've taken, the process I've got for these fellas is very forgiving. So every layer that I fuck up, every layer I do, and if I've got a bit of a mess, I can cover it up with the next one. And if that encroaches on the previous one, it's a real easy touch up as well. So I know a lot of people do everything else and focus on the carapace for the last one because that is the centerpiece for the model, and they want to make sure that none of the paint that they do on the carapace affects anything else. But for me and my process and my sausage fingers and all my lack of skills, I kind of work the other way for me. Oh, I know. I was Go on, I'm gonna have to do some sums on your age there. 16. Oh, I'm older than you. Yeah. It's awesome. All that early computing stuff was great because I think you had to learn more about a computer to be able to play the games. You needed to know a little bit about it. 69 for me. I am an old fuck. I have to admit. A 60s child, accidentally. Still having fun. Right. I want to take a 30-second break. I'm just popping for a bit of a bio break. I'll be back in a couple of moments. Oh, that's right. Oh no, I'm not going to bed just yet. I was just going for a piss, so I'm going to finish the carapace of these fellas first. The fun part is always important. Let's be honest. If you're not having fun with something, don't do it. Ultimately, life is short. For the most part, it sucks. There's some awesome bits in the middle. Enjoy it while you can. Awesome. Yeah, I first saw White Dwarf in my school library. It had been issue something 30, something really quite early, and I just didn't understand what it was. It took a couple of years before I actually really understood what it was, what the gaming was. And then another couple of years before I realised I could actually buy the damn thing and get my local newsagent to actually order it in for me. Because it wasn't something in sort of like rural Stockport that was ever available. It was never on the shelf. And it took a while to figure out that I could get the damn thing. And I remember poring through the pages and looking at all the campaigns that they had up for Dungeons and Dragons, for Traveller, and all this kind of stuff that came through, looking at the absolute awesome models and painting that was done, and I just loved this stuff. Right, let's do a quick dry brush of this now. What I want to do is kind of just catch the edges a little bit. If you watch any of my painting, you'll know that I love dry brushing. As I said, because it works. It matches my approach quite nicely. My approach has been a bit lazy. I think tonight I'm going to finish the dry brush. I'll probably do a touch up with the white. I'll probably call it quits, so we'll probably about another half an hour or so. I'm not sure if you can. Oop, I was off. Not sure if you can tell the difference. Oh god, this bloody camera! I have to do something different here. I tell you, it's with a mix of the layers that I put in before. It does just really kind of catch everything and just tie it all together. Just finishes off that carapace well. I know with larger models, which have got more of kind of that kind of layered. I'll show you on this one. So you can see on the back here of the Mawloc, when I do the dry brushing, I really just catch it back across the edges here. So it just, it's not over the bit of tile, it just really catches the edges, and it really just helps highlight the very edge with the carapace after all the kind of the feathering that I've put into that one. Thank you. I don't think it's not. I think it's more Kraken than Leviathan, that one. I think, but it was never meant to be a particular high fleet. I think it was more accidental, because when we started doing this, so I build and paint. My lad builds and plays. So it came down to what he wanted to actually see his models painted as. I had no idea, so we scrounged Reddit for a week or so, looking all the nice nids that he'd seen painted. We picked a few, and then we figured out a kind of recipe to do both the flesh bits he'd seen that he liked and the carapace bits that he'd seen, and kind of made it up from there. So I think it's more, like I said, more Kraken than Leviathan. There's not quite much purple in the skin we do there. The carapace is certainly quite a nice red that we get going. And again, with all my paint, it's a simple, lazy approach, but it's not about winning painting awards. It's about getting a good-looking army on the table at the end of the day. So I always really remember the spectrum for, was it Jet Set Willy? For me, that was always the spectrum game. Like the BBC was Revs and Elite. And it didn't really translate very well to the Spectrum or the Commodore 64. It was something specific about the BBC Micro. That kind of the vector graphic that they built for that was the awesome thing to do. Quick check on eBay, we'll sort that out for you. Find your value. Don't think I ever played Football Manager. I'm trying to think, by 82, what was I doing at 82? No, I think I was still mucking around with the computer, but Football Manager wasn't one that I think I ever played at that time. Clean. Well, maybe dry brushing. Paint's got a little too dry in there. Give that a good clean in a moment with some brush soap. So, about a year ago, I dug out my Commodore 64 from the attic and gave it to my brother, who's living up in Leeds, and we did a lot of stuff together on the Commodore 64 when we had it. We were called the Goblin and Ian, and we did demos and all kinds of stuff on it, and we were on something called CompuNet, which was kind of a really early bulletin board kind of stuff. And there's a thriving Commodore 64 community these days. You can buy all sorts of stuff for it to kind of convert the old analog PAL output into HDMI and stuff like that. So he's having a blast of a time with it now. People are even releasing new games for the Commodore 64 that will play just on a Commodore 64. Well, it's quite entertaining there. Hey, good luck on the Prime there, Teabag. And enjoy the sushi. It's quarter past 12 here, so I think we're a little past feed time for me. Well, that'll be pretty good. I'll have to check that out, Dave. Oh, sorry. I'll try the pickle. I've got a few minutes. I'll see what's up there. I was trying to remember the guy. I don't remember many of the names from the scene back in that day. There was the guy who did the Mutant Camel game, Jeff Minter. That was it, Jeff Minter. He was a bit weird, and he had some absolutely fantastic games to play. If it was only 7:15 here, I still have a full evening ahead of me. Unfortunately, life's not like that, so I'm going to have to make do. Right, 2 more of these fellas to go. And I think maybe a little more work, we'll see. Oh, is he? I mean, he started off a proper weirdo 30, 40 years ago, so I've got no idea where he's ended up to now. I would expect so. That was his company, wasn't it, at the time, Llamasoft? Revenge of the Mutant Camels was... I played that game so much. Each level was really fun. Eugene, don't forget your axe. Can be occupied for hours and hours and hours. Is he still in Reading? That scares me. It's on my doorstep. Yeah, for larger models, it'd be much better than my little thing here. I've just got one of the Games Workshop small dry brushes. It works. Quite happy with them. Certainly for a big dragon, you want something better. And I think I've seen some really good use of those kind of makeup brushes. I've seen people squish them together as well, just to get really focused, as well as just using them for larger areas. I've got some in the future. I've got some quite large areas that are going to need some love with a big brush like that. Right. Oh, you can't see. Let's see if I can zoom in and see if we can get something on that. Camera's rubbish, but I think you get the idea. There's a bit feathered out with the two other colours. We've got a bit of dry brushing to catch the highlights there, so those fellas are all done. So for these guys, the carapace is all wrapped up. So that's 10 of those, and I find that getting the carapace done is about half the time it takes me to wrap up the model. So the rest goes down to a bit of touch up, and I think I might do that now. Get that done for the last night. Then we work onto the body, claws, face, base, and done. Right, before we do anything else, I'm going to clean this brush properly. This is some brush soap, which I find works really, really well to take out all the pigment from a brush. You can take a bit of time to work this through. Yeah, absolutely. No mistaking these for mugs that you're drinking from. They've got a low centre of gravity, so you can't knock them over unless you really, really try. And not me, I don't have a sweet tooth, but the wife and the kids love the desserts that were in them. But they're so expensive now. These are 10 years old. Yeah, I used to put a little bit of sort of washing up liquid and running around like that, but I'm quite happy kind of just doing it in this now as well. Works well for me. Have the desserts, wash them out, finish it off with a triple whiskey. Getting there. A bit more. There we go. Nearly there. A little bit of pigment will just come out quickly. Right. It is coming to 12:30. I think I'm pretty much done, guys. Well, I do have tomorrow off. I still need to get up early for an appointment, so I think paintbrush is clean. A little bit of tidy up to do, so I'm going to call it there, guys. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been fun chat. Thanks Teabagger, thanks Pickle, thanks Dave. It's been entertaining. I hope you have a good evening. I hope your Friday is fun. Be safe, be good. I will catch you all next time. Take care, fellas. Good night.